morning. Today, I'm going to talk about an idea and a project that puts that idea into action. And it's one that brings together two seemingly unrelated outcomes of the technology-rich society in which we live. One, there are not enough women finding careers and futures in IT, to the detriment not only of the women themselves, but to the value and relevance of IT solutions for the 21st century. And two, much of the nonprofit sector, for largely economic reasons, has not benefited from the transformative effects of IT and thus remains mired in more costly and less efficient work in service of their missions. The idea? Information technology can help transform the efficiency and effectiveness of the nonprofit sector, and opportunities for undergraduate experiences in nonprofits can help transform the field of information technology. First, let's jump into the problem side. What's going on with women in IT? I got my start in computing in the 1980s, and the relative lack of women at the time didn't seem so unusual. After all, most of the professions were not gender balanced, and surely if we worked at it, we would change things. And yet, here we are in 2013, and the numbers of women have scarcely budged from where they were 3 decades ago. Why on earth, with all the advances women have made in virtually every profession, and with all the work we've done to address the gender gap in IT, haven't we closed it? Well, there are lots of reasons, and fortunately, explicit bias is less and less one of them. But what's equally damaging is unconscious bias, and women as well as men are guilty of it. Here's a case in point. A group of scientists, men and women, were given application materials from a student applying for a lab manager position and who wants to go on to graduate school. Half the scientists were given those application materials with a male name attached, and the other half, same materials with a female name attached. The respondents rated the female applicant significantly lower in competence, hireability, and whether they'd be willing to mentor this student. And they offered a lower starting salary to the female applicant. Guess when that study was done? Last fall. Other research points to the persistence of stereotypes about women in math, women's spatial skills, the lack of female role models that can help with identity formation, and the basic nature of computing culture itself. There remains a dominant paradigm of the nerdy guy who is passionately in love with computers and spends all his time programming, usually by himself. It's not that all boys and young men identify with the lone male geek stereotype, but there's no real penalty for them not to. Research consistently shows that high school girls have multiple interests and don't want to spend all their time programming, even if they like to do it. But once they get to college and freshman year starts, so do the programming courses, and suddenly that is all they're doing. Their programming assignments typically require them to work by themselves, and their male classmates, probably for reasons of just more time on task, may be more advanced, leaving the impression for some young women that they just can't cut it and they don't belong. To be fair, we have made a lot of progress, particularly in the pipeline. By the time both male and female high school seniors head to college, they are about equally prepared to pursue work in a science or technology discipline. But at graduation, fewer than 20% of the bachelor's degrees in physics, engineering, and computer science go to women, and the numbers decline further in graduate school and further still in the transition to the workforce. We need to focus serious attention on post-secondary education. It's at this point that women drop out. But why is it important to balance gender? I mean, even if IT is dominated by men, millions of people around the world are benefiting from many useful, even life-changing technologies. Why work so hard to bring more women in? Well, I'll give you 3 reasons. The first, not surprisingly, is equity. Tech careers pay well, and they have lots of opportunities for advancement, and women should benefit just as men do. The pay gap between men and women in the tech sector is smaller than it is in just about any other one. And there are still extra burdens on women who do choose a tech career. Recall my earlier example of unconscious bias. Reason 2, skilled labor shortages. Most professions and industries need workers who have at least basic technology skills, but they're having trouble finding them. And projections show this will only get harder. Women, and not incidentally minorities, represent untapped resources. But perhaps most important is reason 3, the health of the IT sector itself. We need the IT-based products and services of the future to be responsive to a diverse consumer market, where, by the way, women make 83% of the consumer decisions. Studies have shown that companies with gender balance on their management teams perform better and add more value. And men, maybe especially the stereotypical lone male geeks, benefit from interactions with people who put the computer in a larger context and ask what societal problem is being solved. And studies show these are more likely to be women. The computing culture in college abandons both young women and young men who are not being exposed to the realities of working in diverse teams and focusing on what's beyond the screen. We can do better. So let's look at the other half of the problem, the IT gap in nonprofits, particularly smaller ones. Anyone volunteering for a local nonprofit can see how they struggle to incorporate up-to-date technology in carrying out their missions. Funding is scarce, and the priority is always direct service, not infrastructure. As a result, most nonprofits rely on old equipment, limited site license seats for even enterprise critical software, manual record keeping, difficulty maintaining websites, much less improving them, limited use of technology in support of fundraising, which would help ameliorate all those problems. A survey of nonprofits conducted 3 years ago by students in a class I taught identified that for most of these organizations, even knowing how IT can help with their missions is a challenge. Most small nonprofits rely on volunteers for their IT support, resulting in service that is inconsistent and rarely strategic. Nonprofits attract the public support by fulfilling missions that help their communities. But nonprofits have to earn and keep our trust to get us to give them money. And transparency and communication are essential to trust creation. These days, it's impossible to communicate without great websites, creative use of social media, electronic newsletters with good data on services and outcomes. We've all seen how IT has driven down costs and driven up efficiency in other sectors. Ensuring that smaller nonprofits benefit from these transformations helps keep them operating to the benefit of all of us, addressing hunger, poverty, homelessness, domestic violence, bolstering the arts, recreation, and education, all the things that make Bloomington a strong, vibrant, caring community. So how do these two have-not tales fit together? 4 words: technology for social good. The concept isn't new, but in the context of the gender gap in IT, it became something very powerful for those of us in the Indiana University School of Informatics and Computing, where becoming a national exemplar for gender parity is a top priority. The number of female undergraduates has doubled in the last couple of years, but it's still under 20%, leaving lots of room for improvement. Studies consistently show that most IT-oriented women are drawn to the idea of the computer as a positive force for change, and they are drawn to collaborative, team-based learning environments. Other studies show that most minorities carry deeply held values of giving back to their communities, particularly when they may be the first in their family to attend college. My informatics colleagues and I thought that if we could organize a service learning program around this idea of technology for social good, we might help change the image of IT as not being only for the lone male geeks. And not only could we attract more women and minorities, we might keep them. The idea of starting a clinic to organize student-provided IT services for nonprofits on a pro bono basis had come up before, but without results. But this time, we thought we had the right context. the push for a more inclusive IT culture through service learning at a critical point in student development. And what better way to develop the idea than to get students involved from the outset? So in spring term 2010, a colleague and I taught a graduate elective class of students from Informatics and from IU's nonprofit management program to look at the establishment of a multidiscipline, collaboratively run clinic that would put student-led IT support teams into Bloomington area nonprofits. The students surveyed IT needs in a range of organizations, looked at a number of other models in other places, developed a business plan, and came up with a name. ServeIT officially opened for business in January of 2011 with 4 clients and 23 interns organized into 6 teams, 1 for each client, and a tech support team and a training team. By fall 2011, it was a bona fide 4-credit internship option in informatics, a big win for the students and a source of ongoing tuition revenue for the clinic. Fast forward to spring 2013. 49 interns are providing services to 6 organizations supported by 4 cross-clinic teams. One that does smaller projects, general tech support, client training, and special ops, a kind of high-tech cleanup squad. 26 organizations have been assisted by ServeIT since it began, and 21 of these will have successfully completed their projects by the end of this semester. What has made ServeIT work so well? Well, there are several reasons. One is that teams work across semesters rather than ending when the course is over, and the entire focus is on what the nonprofit needs, not the requirements of the course. The teams document their work, so if a client returns in the future, there's a record of what was done. And the interns are also required to provide 10 hours of direct service, so that gives them a stake in the organizations that they're serving. An intern on the database team from Middleway House, our local domestic violence prevention agency, said it best. It's not hard to remember the mission of the organization when you're building an input form focused on a person who's been exposed to violence at the hands of someone who's supposed to love her. It's in these moments when the task of building a database doesn't seem so far removed from directly helping domestic violence survivors. Directors of nonprofits with the ServeIT team talk about being able to focus on their missions because they're not struggling to solve IT problems. They've been able to expand services because they have the time, but more importantly, because they have the tools. The director of Bloomington Area Birth Services, a childbirth education agency, says, "The ServeIT team has freed up my time to focus on things only I can do. Online forms are saving time, boosting enrollments in our classes, and we've been able to start new programs, like a lending library." But it's been more than these tangible outcomes. The clients see the students' compassion and professionalism, their spirit of service. Real relationships have been built based on mutual respect and trust. And another gap, the one between town and gown, gets bridged. 3 years in, ServeIT is a success with outcomes in improved nonprofit capability and in helping to close the gender gap. Women students make up about 40% of the clinic interns, twice the percentage in the informatics student population as a whole, and it also draws a higher percentage of minorities. But it is also important to note that over half the interns are men. We believe strongly that the concept of technology for social good works to the benefit of everyone. To the extent that computing culture can be narrow and monolithic, creating diverse, real-world experiences helps transform it into the image of computing into one where there are multiple ways of being. This is so critical to our collective future, and everyone listening today can take part. If you're part of a community college or university with technical programs, you can start a clinic. If you're part of a nonprofit or perhaps the local United Way or community foundation, you can seek out an academic partner to start a program like ServeIT. And if you're a student, you can be part of helping to change the culture, even if you're not in computer science. We need all of you to be open to the vast array of experiences that a technology or technology-enriched career can open up. Nonprofits will always be part of your lives, sources of community strength and reflections of the value of giving back. And the need to work with others different from yourself will be part of any path you choose to take. Technology for social good gives every one of us a way to bring those left out of the technology-rich opportunities of the 21st century world into the mainstream, and helps ensure that future generations of scientists and technologists reflect the human diversity in the world for which they will create the solutions. Thank you.